In this video, we're going to be making a basic synth kick drum sound, something like an 808 or 909, those really famous, powerful synth drum machines. And it's actually a very simple patch. It's a sine wave that decays away naturally. And the benefit of this patch is we'll know how to manipulate it for the needs of our song. So we really want to carefully control the note that the drum is playing and also the duration of it so they match the needs of our track. The oscillator in our kick drum is just going to be a sine wave. And our default initialized patch starts with a sawtooth waveform, which we're not going to need. So we're actually going to use the sub-oscillator so we have a clean sine wave to work with. The first thing we'll do is turn off our main oscillator, turn up the level of the sine wave sub-oscillator, and set its octave to 0. So that way it'll track perfectly with the main oscillator. We also want to make sure that link is on in the sub-oscillator. That'll make sure that any modulation that happens in the main oscillator pitch will be tracked. It'll follow with our sub-oscillators. So now if we play, we'll hear a simple sine wave. This might be a good time to try the different octaves and maybe even play with the different waveforms to get a sense of how they sound. But all we need for this patch is a sine wave. You might find that when you bring up just a sine wave, the level of your whole patch will go down a bit because a sine wave is a very simple waveform and doesn't have those upper partials. So you might have to increase the overall level of your entire patch. To get a nice solid sine wave, it's basically full level. Now as I play that note, it stays on as I hold the note. So it's implying a kind of sustaining sound. Now a drum, you add energy to it once and that decays away naturally. If I want to do that with my amp envelope, I'll have to take sustain all the way down and bring up decay to control the length of the note. And it'll decay away naturally. Now if I turn decay way up, it'll take a long time for that note to decay. Which might be good in some songs. We really want to relate that length of that decay phase to our song itself, and usually I try to make my kick drums last around a quarter note in length. But there is something a little odd about this right now, in that if I hold the note, it'll play out for the entire decay phase, but if I play short, it'll kind of stop. And that's because when you have a note off, the release phase starts. And if we want to make it so this drum continues on naturally, whether we play a short note or long note, we just want to make sure our release time is the same as our decay time. And if we do that, if I play a short note, it continues on, and if I hold out, it continues on. So we have really our 808 kick right here. It's just a matter of playing the correct pitch, something nice and low, and also just really refining that decay time and making sure release is about the same as it. So I'll play a lower note. We get that nice thumpy kick drum. Could work well in a dance tune or layered underneath an acoustic kick to give it some weight. Now, I like this kick. I think it's working out well, but I would like a little more emphasis on the attack, a little bit of a thump or a punch right at the attack of the kick. And to do that, we'll employ the mod envelope and have it modulate pitch just a bit at the very attack. We often want to focus a lot on that attack phase. So I'll make my mod envelope have a similar shape as my amplitude envelope, and that'll take sustain all the way down. I'll bring up decay a bit, give me a little less than the amp envelope, and I'll bring up release to match just like we did before. I have my mod envelope shape, and we can see it in the scope here, a nice quick percussive envelope, and I just need to bring up the modulation amount for the pitch envelope in the main oscillator section. Let's hear what we get here. We get that high end right at the beginning of that kick. Now if I start adjusting my decay time, we can decrease the emphasis of it, and I can also change the amount of the modulation to adjust the timbre of that kick. So we have a nice, modifiable, adjustable kick drum. I'd like you to pause and start working with these parameters. So we want to experiment with the amp envelope, decay and release phase, experiment with the mod envelope, decay and release phase, and the pitch modulation amount. You also might want to play with the sub-oscillator waveforms to get different characters on your kick. And the last thing you might want to play with is just adding a little bit of noise to the sound to give a little more emphasis on that attack.